Ethan had always considered himself a fortunate man. A self-made entrepreneur, he worked tirelessly to build a comfortable life for himself and his wife, Olivia. They had been married for 8 years, and while their relationship wasn't without its challenges, he believed they shared an unbreakable bond. His best friend Marcus was practically family. Their friendship spanned decades, and Marcus had been by Ethan's side through thick and thin. But lately, something felt off. Ethan noticed subtle changes in Olivia's behavior. She seemed distracted, her laughter forced. Marcus, once an open book, had grown secretive, avoiding eye contact when they spoke. Ethan dismissed these thoughts as paranoia at first. After all, he trusted them both implicitly. That changed one fateful evening. Ethan had returned home early from a business trip, eager to surprise Olivia with a romantic dinner. As he approached the house, he noticed the faint glow of candlelight through the living room window. His heart sank, not because of the ambiance, but because of the unmistakable silhouettes of Olivia and Marcus, locked in an intimate conversation. He stopped in his tracks, his instincts screaming that something was wrong. Quietly, he stepped closer, straining to hear. "I'm telling you, it's now or never," Marcus said, his voice low but urgent. "Ethan's too trusting. He'll never see it coming." Olivia hesitated before responding, her tone laced with guilt. "I know, but what if it backfires? What if he figures it out?" "He won't," Marcus assured her, "and by the time he does, we'll already have what we need. Trust me, Olivia, this plan is flawless." Ethan's chest tightened, anger and disbelief swirling inside him. He wanted to burst through the door and confront them, but he forced himself to stay calm. Instead, he retreated to his car, his mind racing. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a conspiracy. And if Marcus thought Ethan was too trusting, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Instead, he began crafting a plan. A countermeasure that would not only expose their deceit, but turn their perfect scheme into a nightmare they'd never forget. Ethan spent the next few days playing the role of the oblivious husband and loyal friend. His smiles were as warm as ever, his conversations as engaging, and his demeanor as trusting as they expected. But behind the facade, he was a man on a mission. The first step was gathering evidence. Ethan discreetly installed hidden cameras and microphones in the house, particularly in areas Olivia and Marcus seemed to frequent during his absences. He also accessed shared accounts and checked phone records, uncovering a flurry of messages and late-night calls between the two. The content was damning. Financial plans, secret meetings, and thinly veiled references to what Ethan presumed was a scheme to siphon money from his business. With every discovery, Ethan's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was an outright betrayal of everything he held dear. But rather than confront them directly, Ethan decided to use their overconfidence against them. One evening, over dinner, Ethan casually mentioned an upcoming business deal. "It's going to be a game changer," he said, watching their reactions closely. "The kind of deal that could set us up for life. But it's risky. If it doesn't go through, I could lose everything." Olivia glanced at Marcus, a flicker of something passing between them. "That sounds exciting," she said, her voice a little too measured. "But are you sure it's worth the risk?" Ethan smiled. "I've run the numbers. I'm confident it'll pay off. In fact, I've set aside a significant amount in a private account, just in case things get complicated." Marcus leaned forward, feigning casual interest. "A private account, huh? Smart move. You've always been good at thinking ahead." Ethan could almost see the wheels turning in their heads. They weren't just plotting against him. They were waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The following week, Ethan leaked fabricated details about the deal through Marcus, knowing it would eventually make its way to Olivia. He hinted at where the funds were hidden and added layers of complexity to make the account seem impenetrable. It was bait, pure and simple, and he knew they wouldn't be able to resist. Meanwhile, Ethan began secretly transferring the actual funds into a new account, one only he could access. He contacted his legal team and shared everything he'd uncovered, ensuring that when the time came, he'd have the upper hand. The final piece of the puzzle was setting up a public confrontation. Ethan planned an extravagant anniversary party for Olivia, inviting friends, family, and even business associates. On the surface, it was a celebration of love and loyalty, but in reality, it was the stage for the ultimate reveal. As the date approached, Olivia and Marcus grew bolder in their actions. Unaware they were walking straight into Ethan's trap. He watched them closely, suppressing his anger with each passing day. The betrayal cut deep, but the thought of their faces when the truth came out kept him going. Ethan didn't just want justice, he wanted a reckoning. The night of the anniversary party arrived, and Ethan ensured every detail was meticulously planned. The house was dazzling with decorations, a soft golden glow emanating from the chandeliers. Guests mingled with glasses of champagne in hand, exchanging laughter and small talk. It was a celebration that screamed harmony and success, masking the storm brewing beneath the surface. Olivia was radiant in her emerald dress, playing the role of the perfect wife. Marcus, ever the charming friend, worked the crowd effortlessly. To everyone else, it was a picture of bliss. But Ethan saw through their smiles and stolen glances. Tonight, the mask would fall. As the evening progressed, Ethan took to the stage to give a speech. He began with the usual pleasantries, thanking everyone for being part of their journey. Olivia stood by his side, her hand resting lightly on his arm, unaware of what was coming next. "There's something special about anniversaries," Ethan said, his voice steady but tinged with an edge of emotion. "They're not just about celebrating love. They're about trust, loyalty, and the promises we make to each other. And tonight, I want to share a story about those promises." The room fell silent as he continued. "Imagine giving everything you have to the people you trust the most. Your heart, your resources, your faith. Now imagine discovering that trust has been broken, not by a stranger, but by the very people you thought would protect it." A ripple of unease spread through the crowd. Olivia's smile faltered, and Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Ethan's gaze swept the room, finally landing on them. "For weeks, I've been living in a nightmare," Ethan said, his tone sharp. "A nightmare of betrayal by the two people I thought I could count on above all else. My wife and my best friend." Gasps erupted from the audience. Olivia's hand dropped from Ethan's arm, her face draining of color. Marcus froze, his composure slipping, but Ethan wasn't finished. "I didn't want to believe it at first," he said, pulling out a remote and clicking a button. A projector screen descended and the room dimmed. But actions speak louder than words, and thanks to technology, so do recorded conversations. The screen came to life with footage of Olivia and Marcus's clandestine meetings. Their voices echoed through the room, laying bare their scheme, plans to drain Ethan's accounts and start a new life together. Olivia clasped her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Marcus tried to interject, but the evidence was undeniable. Ethan faced the crowd, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "To those who came here to celebrate love, I apologize for what you've witnessed. But tonight isn't just about betrayal, it's about justice." He turned to Marcus and Olivia, his expression cold. "I trusted you both with everything I had, but now it's my turn to take everything back." Ethan revealed the final twist. His business assets had already been transferred to secure accounts, leaving Marcus and Olivia with nothing. Legal proceedings had been initiated, and both of them were now under investigation. The crowd erupted into whispers and shocked murmurs. Olivia fell to her knees, pleading for forgiveness, while Marcus stormed out, his reputation in ruins. Ethan stood tall, watching the chaos unfold. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of closure. Their perfect plan had become their worst nightmare, and he had made sure of it. The party ended in stunned silence. Guests left quickly, their whispered conversations a mix of shock, disbelief, and admiration for Ethan's calm, yet devastating display of justice. Ethan stood alone in the now empty living room, the remnants of the celebration scattered around him. The weight of the evening settled on his shoulders, but he felt a strange sense of relief. Olivia hadn't returned after her public humiliation. Ethan had expected as much. She and Marcus had been left with nothing. No access to his accounts, no assets, and no network of support. Ethan had made sure of it. The following day, Olivia reached out. Her messages were a mix of apologies, excuses, and desperate attempts to salvage something from the wreckage. She claimed she had been manipulated, that Marcus had planted the idea and pressured her into going along with it. But Ethan wasn't swayed. He agreed to meet her, not out of sympathy but for closure. They sat across from each other in a small cafe, the air thick with tension. "I made a mistake," Olivia began, her voice trembling. "I was stupid and selfish, but I never wanted to hurt you, Ethan. I got caught up in Marcus's plans and I didn't know how to stop." Ethan's expression remained unreadable. "You didn't know how to stop? Or you didn't want to?" She flinched, tears brimming in her eyes. "I loved you, Ethan. I still do. But you were always so perfect. It felt like I was invisible, like nothing I did was ever enough. Marcus noticed me when you didn't." Ethan let her words sink in, his emotions a mix of anger and pity. "So instead of talking to me, you decided to betray me? You chose to conspire with the one person I trusted most? That's not love, Olivia. That's cowardice." Her tears flowed freely now, but Ethan felt no sympathy. He had given her everything, and she had thrown it away for fleeting attention and a misguided sense of empowerment. "I don't hate you," he said finally, "but I can't forgive you either. What you and Marcus did wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated attack on my life, my work, and everything I built. I'll move on, but I won't carry you with me." Olivia sobbed silently as Ethan stood to leave. "Goodbye, Olivia. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be at my expense." As he walked away, Ethan felt a weight lift. Confronting Olivia had been painful, but it was a necessary step toward healing. Marcus, on the other hand, wasn't interested in apologies or explanations. He had gone silent, avoiding any contact. Ethan took comfort in knowing Marcus's life was falling apart. Ethan had sent the recordings of their conversations to Marcus's employer and business partners, ensuring he would face professional and personal consequences. With both betrayers dealt with, Ethan turned his attention to rebuilding his life. The betrayal had been a brutal wake-up call, but it also gave him a newfound clarity. He vowed to never let his trust be so easily exploited again. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt free, and in that freedom, he found the strength to start anew. Ethan channeled his pain into productivity. The betrayal that had nearly broken him became fuel for his transformation. He revamped his business, distancing himself from partnerships that no longer aligned with his values. He poured himself into new ventures, creating opportunities for others and establishing himself as a leader who valued integrity above all else. One of his first initiatives was a foundation to support small business owners who had experienced financial fraud or betrayal in their ventures. The foundation, aptly named Second Chance, quickly gained traction and became a beacon of hope for those who had faced similar hardships. Ethan found solace in helping others rebuild their lives, much like he was rebuilding his own. In the months following the fallout, Ethan began to reflect on his relationships. He realized that his trust had been misplaced, but he also recognized his own flaws, his tendency to focus too heavily on work and take those closest to him for granted. The experience had taught him the importance of balance and self-awareness. One evening, while reviewing proposals for his foundation, Ethan received an email from an unexpected sender. It was Marcus. The message was short but telling. "Ethan, I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, and the respect of those I care about. I can't undo what I've done, but I need you to know I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what I did to you. I've started counseling to figure out where I went wrong. I hope one day you can forgive me. If not, I understand." Marcus. Ethan stared at the screen, emotions swirling. Forgiveness wasn't something he could grant easily, but the message wasn't about Marcus. It was about Ethan. Holding on to anger wouldn't change the past or heal his wounds. That night, Ethan wrote a reply. "Marcus, I appreciate your apology, but forgiveness isn't something I can give lightly. I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same. I hope your counseling helps you find clarity and peace." Ethan. The exchange marked a turning point for Ethan. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was closure. As for Olivia, she tried to reach out several times, but Ethan kept his distance. He knew her regret was genuine, but her choices had left scars that time alone couldn't heal. He wished her no harm but refused to let her back into his life. Over time, Ethan began to open up to new connections. He found companionship in unexpected places, forging relationships based on mutual respect and honesty. Slowly but surely, he rebuilt his faith in people, understanding that not everyone would betray his trust. Life wasn't perfect, but it was his. Ethan had turned the worst nightmare of his life into a lesson that reshaped his future. And in doing so, he discovered a version of himself he never knew existed. Stronger, wiser, and unshakable. A year after the betrayal that had upended his life, Ethan stood on the balcony of his newly purchased apartment overlooking the city skyline. The cool evening breeze carried with it a sense of renewal and peace he hadn't felt in years. This was his moment, not as a victim of betrayal, but as a man who had triumphed over it. The anniversary of that fateful night had come and gone without a single pang of sorrow. Instead, it marked the beginning of a tradition Ethan had created, a day to celebrate resilience and growth. He had spent it volunteering with his foundation, sharing his story with others who had faced their own storms. His personal life had also begun to heal. Though trust had been a fragile concept for him, he had recently started seeing someone, Chloe, a fellow entrepreneur he had met through his foundation. Chloe was warm, empathetic, and unapologetically authentic. She had her own scars from past relationships, and their shared experiences created a bond rooted in honesty and mutual respect. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner, Chloe asked him about his past. Ethan hesitated but decided to open up. He told her about Olivia, Marcus, and the betrayal that had nearly shattered him. Chloe listened intently, her eyes reflecting both sadness and admiration. "You didn't just survive that," she said, her voice steady. "You turned it into something meaningful. That's the kind of strength most people only dream of having." Her words stayed with him. It wasn't just about what he had lost, it was about what he had gained. Ethan's business thrived, not just in profits but in purpose. His employees admired him for his resilience and vision, and his foundation continued to grow, touching lives in ways he hadn't thought possible. One day, while reviewing a new grant application, Ethan received a letter from Olivia. This time, it wasn't an apology but a note of gratitude. She thanked him for helping her realize the depth of her mistakes and shared that she had started rebuilding her life by pursuing a career in counseling, hoping to guide others away from the path she had taken. Ethan folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. He didn't reply, but felt a sense of closure knowing she was trying to better herself. Marcus, too, had reached out once more, informing Ethan that he had moved to another city and started working as a school teacher. "I'm teaching my students about integrity," the message read, "something I had to learn the hard way." Ethan chose not to reply, but he smiled. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan raised a glass of wine to the sky. He wasn't celebrating revenge or justice anymore. He was celebrating the man he had become, one who had faced betrayal, embraced his pain, and emerged stronger than ever. "Here's to second chances," he whispered, clinking his glass with Chloe's. The nightmare was over, but the lessons remained. Ethan had turned the darkest chapter of his life into a story of redemption, growth, and hope. A story that was far from over.